things started off. It was 2 a.m., the once silent streets. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light bursts in, one heavy truck after another. All were adorned with gold medals. My name is Li Cheng. After leaving the military, he worked as a security team leader at a listed company, watching the surveillance every night, scanning every area of the city. It had long become a habit, but this eerie scene, it made me tense up. This is definitely not normal material transportation. As expected, the main unit of the monitoring center. Suddenly, an encrypted signal popped up. Emergency plan for global genes spread out of control. These few words. It instantly reminded me of my discharge from the military, the highest level I have ever encountered. Doomsday plan. That was only the core staff. Only then do they have the right to know top secret information. Once enabled, it means human civilization may face the threat of collapse. My fingertips trembled. He immediately called his old friend, Officer Wang's phone number. Did old Wang Jiangqing have gotten into trouble? On the other end of the line. But a careless laugh came through. You said so. These are the few cases that were reported a few days ago. A new virus. Don't worry, old Li. Hospital experts have long denied the rumors. It's just a common flu variant. He hung up the phone. The truck and the surveillance footage, still driving in one after another. I saw it with my own eyes. Several people wearing heavy protective suits jump out of the car. He hurried toward the city center. This is definitely not that simple. I gritted my teeth. No more hesitation. Open the phone folder. Real estate and vehicle trading apps. We'll take 2 properties under its name. An entire off-road vehicle posted its price tag. It was directly slashed to 30% of the market price. The extremely low price instantly triggered the news. In less than 2 hours, all assets were sold out. 5 million yuan in cash steadily arrived. Holding the transfer records on his phone, I immediately switched to shopping apps. Started placing orders like crazy. Compressed biscuits. Vacuum-packed bottled drinking water from Eat. Each ordered 100 boxes. Cold medicine. Fever reducers, tourniquets, antibiotics. Waiting for medicine to fill 3 shopping carts. In fact, includes spare batteries for lighter and flashlight. I bought 2 whole boxes. Every survival material I could think of. I went through all of them like a carpet. Address directly entered into the company warehouse. Early the next morning, I had heavy dark circles under my eyes. Entering the security department meeting room, he announced with a grave expression. Received an urgent notice from the group. Launched the highest level security drill of the quarter. Everyone immediately gathered at the warehouse. Assist in transporting supplies. Simulating emergency evacuation procedures. On the faces of the subordinates, all showed puzzled expressions. This is a temporary assault exercise. Never before. But no one dared to question it. I'm a team leader with a veteran background. Away pushed the supply cart, walking at the end of the line. The captain's exercise is way too realistic. I patted him on the shoulder. Trust me, this is not an exercise. Warehouse stocks of food and emergency medicine, stab-resistant rubber batons, even several boxes of high-voltage stun guns are continuously being brought up. I rented a heavy truck in advance, right at the end, when a box of supplies was loaded onto the carriage. A piercing, highest-level emergency alert. Suddenly, it tore through the sky above the city. A piercing sound pierced through the eardrum. It was enough to make your scalp tingle. Disaster still comes. Urgent notice. The entire city immediately implemented a lockdown. All citizens immediately returned to their residences, and was forbidden to go out. On the surveillance footage, the streets instantly descended into chaos. The sound of a car rear-end collision. The crowd screamed and cried. Out-of-control vehicles rampaged wildly. The city was once orderly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a chaotic maze. I took out my phone, pulled out last night through special channels. Screenshots of the internal network we obtained, thrown to away. Global infection data on screen is soaring at a speed visible to the naked eye. Red warning point. Spread like a plague. Jiangqing. It was completely encircled by red. Pick and come with me. Still stay here. Away stared at the screen. Countless red dots. His face instantly turned deathly pale. His Adam's apple bobbed once. Without the slightest hesitation, he jumped into the truck's front passenger seat. I climbed into the car, turned the key. Heavy trucks. A muffled roar rumbled, breaking through the warehouse gate. They drove toward the outskirts of the city. Captain Li, we're here. Where are we going? Going to the abandoned nuclear power plant near my hometown. I remember the walls of that nuclear power plant were sturdy. There is an independent ventilation system. There are also emergency supplies left over from earlier years. It must be the safest refuge in the apocalypse. When we were just getting ready, when driving onto the approach bridge leading to the highway, suddenly, the phone screen lit up. An urgent notice came before his eyes. To respond to sudden public incidents, the provincial highway will be closed in 10 minutes. At this moment, there are already quite a few traffic police on the highway. Lay roadblocks at every section. I looked at the route shown on the navigation, and a striking countdown. A strong sense of crisis surged in his heart. I suddenly slammed the steering wheel. Heavy truck tires. A loud bang echoed on the asphalt. I know. After 10 minutes, the entire event will be sealed off. Now take the highway. It was walking right into a trap, but my years of driving experience tell me there is a dirt road to walk, and it can avoid inspections from higher authorities. That's how we drove. This fully loaded war fortress. He dove straight into a strip. There are no marked marks on the map. Urban-rural fringe area. The small path is extremely narrow. The massive body of a heavy truck. It almost brushed against the houses on both sides. Drive over there. Suddenly ahead, a temporary level appeared. several people in uniform. They were frantically setting up the police cordon. However, I have no intention of slowing down. He honked the car horn. The piercing whistle echoed across the sky. Startled, the people at the checkpoint jumped away. She watched me helplessly. This steel beast. In the last second before the cordon closed, he forced his way forward. In the rearview mirror, their silhouettes and the city's silhouette gradually shrinking, until they vanished without a trace. I finally managed to get on the highway. This road leads to the nuclear power plant. I have run it no less than 100 times. But today, there was a certain aura, an indescribably eerie atmosphere. There are too few cars on the open road. Occasionally you can see it. Several private cars collided together. The carriage doors were wide open. Luggage was scattered all over the ground. On the car body, there were several deep, long scratch marks. It was as if he had been attacked by some kind of wild beast. But there was no blood at the scene. I floored the accelerator. The heavy truck roared deafeningly. He frenziedly broke free from the restraints of the service area. At that moment, the sweet female voice on the broadcast. It has vanished without a trace. Turn it on. Yes. A series of sharp, piercing static noises rang out. Urgent notice. All citizens are asked to stay home. Going out is prohibited. The voice echoed through the air. It also sounded the alarm for the apocalypse. Then the broadcast fell completely silent. No cell phone signal at all. Our connection with the outside world. At this moment, it was completely severed. The apocalyptic virus is invading highways. It has long become a graveyard for abandoned vehicles, a dense sea of cars, completely blocking all the way forward. Caught between a rock and a hard place, I helplessly turned the steering wheel hard. Driving the heavy truck, he crashed down the roadbed. This solid guy has plenty of horsepower. If the chassis were high, and it would be a sedan, under these road conditions, he was probably already immobilized. Just then, in my sight, this scene unfolded. The family of 3 stood by the roadside. They waved desperately at me. His face was full of despair and pleading. Living in the apocalyptic times, I'm just one survivor struggling to survive. So I gripped the steering wheel tightly. He charged forward without any slowdown, just as I thought. When you can finally breathe a sigh of relief, the car body shook violently. Immediately after, I heard a puff coming from the right rear tire. The tire pressure warning on the instrument panel is buzzing. It lit up immediately. Through the twisted rearview mirror, I saw it just when I rushed down the roadbed. He ran over a smashed signboard. A twisted steel bar. It pierced the truck tire. The speed inevitably slowed down. The outline of a nearby village, faintly visible in the twilight. A few faint roars could be heard. It made me uneasy. Away, and I quickly jumped out of the car, from the toolbox, dragging out heavy jacks and wrenches. I could hear my own pounding heartbeat, and wrench when tightening screws. The sound that was made, sweat instantly soaked my back. I felt a chill run through me. Captain Li. Away suddenly stopped moving. His voice trembled. His whole body stiffened, as if frozen. His face was so pale it had no trace of color. Don't dawdle. You must hurry before dark, I urged without even looking up. His hands moved faster, but Away didn't move, just trembling, pointing toward the darkness not far away. My heart skipped a beat. He looked in the direction he pointed, a dark shadow. They were moving toward the direction of the village, not walking normally. Instead, he limped and staggered from place to place. The posture was so bizarre it sent chills down one's spine. It was a zombie. Why panic? The more you panic, the slower it gets. Hurry up and fix the tires. Away was snapped out of it by my shouting. His hands trembled as he picked up the wrench. Fully cooperate with me. When the last screw is finally tightened, the sound of metal clashing, in the deathly silent wilderness, it was especially grating. That crisp sound was the key. That group was still dozens of meters away. A staggering shadow. He suddenly stopped. This is bad. It was discovered. That thing suddenly tilted toward the sky. He let out a piercing, inhumane roar. 50 meters, 30 meters. At that moment, my mind went blank. But the body, driven by instinct, it moved. I grabbed the jack in one go. He doesn't look like a mechanic. He looked more like an executioner preparing to carry out his sentence. I got in the car and shouted at Away. His voice was hoarse. Even I felt it was unfamiliar. Away, crawling and rolling into the front passenger seat. I then leapt into the cockpit. Just as the car door closed, a dull thud rang out. The zombie crashed into the car door. He felt no pain, only a desire for flesh and blood. Those cloudy, pale eyes, through glass, staring at me intently. Rotten fingers, scratching frantically. The car window creaked with a gust-inducing sound. I slammed on the clutch, shift the gears and throttle, blasting all the way down. The heavy truck let out an angry roar. A massive twist erupted instantly. The car body shook violently. I knew I had knocked him flying. In the rearview mirror, the dark shadow rolled several times on the ground. But it was like a string with broken bones. Like a puppet, trying to stand up. I didn't dare stay. Gripped the steering wheel tightly with both hands. My fingertips turned white from excessive force. The night was as dark as ink. Car headlights. It could only illuminate the road dozens of meters ahead. The shadows of trees on both sides of the road bared their teeth and claws, like countless lurking ghosts. Away curled up in the corner. He gripped the big wrench tightly. Her body trembled like a sieve of chaff. To him, his eyes are red. Away suddenly spoke up. Her voice was tinged with tears. My heart sank. Red eyes. The eyes of ordinary zombies are grayish-white. Red eyes mean mutation, or rather, evolution. It seems this disaster is evolving at a rapid pace, faster than expected. I didn't answer, just stepped up the gas again. The heavy truck is like a running rhino, racing desperately on bumpy dirt roads. Just then, in the darkness ahead, suddenly, several beams of strong light lit up. Immediately after, a burst of intense gunfire followed, breaking the silence of the night. The gunshots were sounding from a gas station 2 kilometers ahead. Flames shot skyward. Half the sky was stained blood red. I instinctively wanted to take a detour, but the red light on the oil dial, it was already flashing wildly. The off-road sprint just now was extremely fuel-intensive. This heavy truck is a gas guzzler. If we don't resupply our company, the shadow of the nuclear power plant is nowhere to be seen. Hold tight. We're going to rush over, I whispered. He pulled a pistol from his waist, chambered and placed on the dashboard. Away widened his eyes, trying to stop him, but seeing my stern profile. In the end, he swallowed his words. The heavy truck slowly approached the gas station. The scene before them was nothing short of a living hell. 2 police cars were overturned and knocked to the ground. A surviving SWAT officer. It leans against the walls of convenience stores on this small isolated island, making a final resistance. Surrounding them were not just a few zombies. Instead, it was a dense horde of corpses. There were even a few more. A mad dog with extremely agile movements, jumping on the roof. I took a deep breath. He honked the air horn. Deafening flute sounds. It instantly drew the attention of all the zombies. The corpse tide was like the ebb tide of seawater. He turned and surged toward me. This is the effect I want. Beseeching way to rescue Zhao. And grab the oil while you're at it. That was a tanker truck. Away pointed to the convenience store nearby. A small oil tanker truck parked. He shouted at me and stepped on the gas. Heavy trucks are like tanks. He crushed several zombies, forced to live amidst the tide of corpses. Carve out a bloody path. It parked precisely next to the tanker truck. Go down and take the pipe. I covered and kicked open the car door. The nail gun in his hand fired several shots in succession. Several zombies tried to approach. My mind is blossoming. Although Away was scared, but only seeking the desire to live, it allowed him to unleash astonishing speed. Just then, inside the convenience store, a bloodied female doctor rushed out. He held a scalpel in his hand. His gaze was fierce. It pierced the neck of a zombie. Take me with you. I know medicine, he shouted at me. In this collapsing world, kindness is an unnecessary burden, but value is the eternal pass. I got in the car without hesitation. The female doctor swiftly climbed into the back car. Fight. Away also pulled out the tubing and jumped up. I slammed the steering wheel. Heavy truck tail swing. Shake off the zombies trying to climb onto the car. Fly rushed into the darkness again. The atmosphere inside the carriage was terrifyingly oppressive. That female doctor, she called herself Lin Yu, skillfully using torn shirts. Bandage your own arm. The wound was cut by glass, not bites. That made my hand hold the gun a little looser. Those SWAT officers couldn't be rescued. Away lowered his head. The voice was muffled. It can't be saved. Our car can't fit that many people, and they have already been infected. Lin Yu interrupted coldly. There was not a trace of emotion in his voice, as if talking about something unrelated to oneself. The captain's pupils had dilated. Mutation is only a matter of time. I looked through the rearview mirror. He examined the woman, calm and rational. It was even somewhat cold-blooded in this apocalypse. This is better than any weapon. Where are we going? Lin Yu looked up. His gaze was as sharp as a blade. Abandoned nuclear power plants. I gave a brief answer. There are walls there. There is an independent water source. Lin Yu frowned. Radiation levels there exceed the limit. It was sealed off long ago. That was an external claim. I sneered. In fact, that was a backup during the Cold War. Underground bunker. Radiation is just a cover-up. Just when we thought we were temporarily safe. Heavy truck chassis. Suddenly, a loud crash rang out. Immediately after, the car body shook violently. Damn, when I rushed out of the gas station just now. Maybe you reached a roadblock. The speed of the car instantly dropped. And in the distance, the horde of corpses that had been thrown off, following the sound, like a pack of tireless hunting dogs. He caught up again. The drive shaft broke. After Away crawled under the car to check, he cried out in despair. I jumped out of the car. Look around. This is the wilderness. No village ahead, no shop behind. The only bunker. It was just a few abandoned houses by the roadside. The distant roars grew closer and closer. The air was thick with the stench of decaying corpses. I decisively ordered the car. This heavy truck is our mobile fortress. Inside, it was filled with supplies. Give him up and then, like cutting a piece of my flesh. But life is more important than supplies. Bring light food, medicine, and weapons. Leave everything else behind. I carried the heaviest tactical backpack in hand, gripping the modified fire axe tightly. Lin Yu and Away also acted quickly. The three of us carried heavy backpacks. He rushed into the wild grass by the roadside. Weeds overgrown here. It is as tall as a person. It can temporarily conceal one's figure, but it also means we can't see it. The danger lurking in the grass. Rustle, rustle. A strange scraping sound came from the grass. It didn't sound like the wind. I suddenly stopped in my tracks. He raised his fist to signal stop. Away's nervous teeth chattered. Just as he was about to speak, I covered my mouth with my hand. It's just to our left, less than 2 meters away. The grass was slowly parted. A pair of bright green eyes appeared. Not human, but a mutated wild dog. Most of its skin and flesh have fallen off. The exposed muscle fibers are dark red, drooping with foul-smelling saliva. Even worse, 3 more followed behind it. These beasts treat us like a late-night snack. Run and shout loudly. The fire axe in his hand swung out fiercely. He directly smashed the lead wild dog's skull. The battle ended quickly. It was also extremely tragic. I was out of breath, leaning against a withered tree. Black blood was still dripping from the fire axe. The 4 mutated wild dogs lay in pools of blood, but we also paid the price. Away's calf was bitten. Even though it was separated by thick cargo pants, blood still seeped out. Lin Yu immediately rushed over to check the wound. No arteries were damaged, but he looked up at me. His gaze was complicated. Animals also carry the virus, although the concentration is lower than that of humans, but the risk of infection still exists. Away heard this. He collapsed to the ground. She looked at me in despair. Captain Li, am I hopeless? I took it from my backpack, pulling out a precious antiviral serum. This is my pre-discharge from the military. Only 2 came. I'll take a gamble and throw the serum to Lin Yu. Lin Yu was momentarily stunned. Obviously, I didn't expect to have such contraband. He didn't waste words. Skilled injection. The sky began to lighten with a fish's belly. Dawn has arrived. But this light did not bring warmth. On the contrary, this helped us see the situation around us. We have strayed from the course, stepping into a swamp, and in the center of the swamp, a signal tower stands faintly tall. That was the peripheral communication station of the nuclear power plant. I recognized that sign. Just get there. We are off the destination. It was just 1 step away. But just then, a deep rumbling sounded, sweeping overhead. It was a drone. Before we could react, on the drone, a cold mechanical voice rang out. Detecting illegal intruders. Immediately hit the head on the spot. Otherwise, kill them without mercy. This is not a government drone. On the fuselage, it features a black skull emblem. Run. That was the only thought in my mind. In this world where order is collapsing, encounter survivors, often more dangerous than encountering zombies, especially this well-equipped armed organization. I slipped into the dense forest, sprinting wildly under the cover of trees. The drone behind them relentlessly pursued. From time to time, a volley of bullets was fired. The bark was blown everywhere. They are vultures, Ling Yu said as she ran, panting as she ran. One group consists of serious criminals, and a mob of retired mercenaries. Specializes in robbing survivors. Men kill women. The woman didn't finish his sentence, but the pale face says it all. Since the vulture had set its sights on her, there is no possibility of a good resolution. We rushed into an abandoned logging yard. The terrain here is complex, packed with huge logs. It is an excellent ambush spot. Away. Can you hack that drone? I hid behind a pile of wood, asked the still trembling tech geek. Away was momentarily stunned. He then took a tablet out of his backpack. His fingers moved rapidly. Give me 2 minutes. As long as he gets within 10 meters of me. I took a deep breath. They rushed out from behind the cover. He flipped the sky with the middle finger. The drone was indeed enraged. Dived down. Flames spewed from the muzzle. Bullets grazed my scalp and flew past. It burned with pain. Now. Away roared. He pressed the enter key. Drones in midair. Suddenly, it was as if he were drunk. Start shaking. Then he plunged headfirst into the pile of wood. Exploded into a fireball. Before we could catch our breath, outside the logging yard, suddenly, a loud engine roar rang out. Several modified off-road vehicles break through the fence, rushed in. There were more than a dozen people standing in the car. A burly man holding an automatic rifle. The little mice are pretty good at running. Leading the group is a scar-faced face. He sneered and jumped out of the car. Facing a dozen or so dark gun barrels, head-on fighting leads to death. I slowly raised both hands, signaling surrender. Lin Yu and Away did as told. Scarface walked over proudly. Gaze. He roamed recklessly over Lin Yu. Men kill women, take them away. He waved his hand casually. It was as if it was deciding the fate of several ants. At that very moment, I saw Wei's hand hidden behind his back, made a strange gesture. That was the signal we had agreed on before. Just now, when he hacked the drone, he invaded the logging yard with his own hands. The power control system. When I started, I shouted loudly, "Away." He suddenly pressed the remote in his hand. Above the Zila logging field, originally abandoned high-voltage wires. Suddenly, a dazzling electric spark erupted. Several broken cables. It swung down like a venomous snake, hit right on those off-road vehicles. A massive electric current instantly swept through the vehicle. Several thugs leaning against the car. There was not even time to scream. It was turned into coke by electricity, taking advantage of the chaos. I drew my pistol. 2 bursts. I knocked down the 2 people closest to me, then around. He grabbed Lin Yu, rolled behind the pile of logs, run toward the back mountain. There are mine tunnels there. I remember the markings on the map. Gunfire erupted wildly behind us. Bullets flew through the air. We were in a sorry state. He entered a pitch-black mine entrance. This is an abandoned coal transport route. It leads directly underground to the nuclear power plant. But after we went several hundred meters deeper, the road ahead. But it was blocked by a thick iron fence, sealed off the dead end. Away collapsed to the ground in despair. No, it's a dead end. I used the light of a flashlight, saw behind the fence. A pair of eyes is staring at us. She was a dirty little girl, about 15 or 16 years old. He held a homemade crossbow bolt. The girl's voice was crisp yet cold. "I have the key, but you have to help me kill someone." The girl behind the iron fence is named Shia. In her eyes, he exuded a ruthlessness beyond his years. I stared at the gun in his hand. He didn't let go. "My uncle," Xiaya said coldly. He turned into a monster. But on him. Yes. Activate the access card for the core area of the nuclear power plant. He was trapped in the distribution room in Zone B3. Outside, the voice of the vulture pursuers grew closer and closer. We had no choice. Xia opened the fence. Take us with you. Drilling into a complex web of underground pipelines, he was like a nimble cat, moving freely through the darkness. It seems he has lived here for a long time. We arrived at Area B3, separated by thick explosion-proof glass. I saw the Uncle Xiaya mentioned. It was a huge one. Mutated zombies. His muscles swelled so much they burst through his clothes. His skin showed an eerie grayish purple. He was in the distribution room, wandering aimlessly. He was still tightly clutching an access card. This is a tank-type variant, Lin Yu gasped. This force can easily tear through steel plates. We need to go in and get the card, then come out alive. I checked it out. The magazine had only 5 rounds left. Xia suddenly reached out from her waist. He pulled out a glowing red speaker. He is very sensitive to sound. Before I could stop her, the cover of the ventilation duct has been opened. It slipped in like an eel. A few seconds later, inside the distribution room, a piercing electronic music sound came through. The monster roared in anger, rushing toward the source of the sound. I kicked open the door to the distribution room, rushing toward the access card that had fallen to the ground, right at my fingertips. The moment you touched the card, the music stopped abruptly. The monster suddenly turned its head. She stared at me intently. That monster. I should call him. The tyrant roared and charged at me. The ground was shaking. I didn't have time to pick up cards. A roll. She dodged his thunderous punch. He crashed to the floor. The cement floor cracked instantly. You catch up. Away shouted at the door. Throw in a fire extinguisher. I caught the fire extinguisher in midair. He sprayed fiercely at the tyrant's face. White dry powder. It instantly captivated his gaze. Taking advantage of his roar, the gap between swinging the arm, I slid over it. He grabbed the access card at the ground. Run me out the door. He pressed the emergency lockdown button with the backhand. The heavy blast-proof door slowly descended. The tyrant roared and charged forward, supporting the falling door with both hands, trying to force it back. That terrifying power let the hydraulic rod beat. It creaked under the pressure. Lin Yu and Away rushed forward, the 3 of us, gripping the manual winch by the door tightly. Right at the blast door, when only a crack remained, the tyrant's hand reached out, blindly and recklessly grabbing. Sharp nails. It tore through my anti-stab suit. Bang, a crossbow bolt. It pierced the tyrant's palm with precision. That was Xia. The monster recoiled in pain. Inside, there was a wild crashing sound, but that was the gateway to prevent nuclear explosions. The blast door finally slammed shut. He couldn't get out. The 4 of us collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Welcome to my home. Xia jumped down from the vent. A sly smile appeared on his face. We finally entered the interior of the nuclear power plant. There is an independent ecological circulation system here. There are mountains of supplies. It's practically a post-apocalyptic paradise. But we didn't get excited for long. The main control screen of a nuclear power plant. Suddenly it lit up. On the screen, a blurry human face appeared. The sound undergoes voice alteration. Congratulations on passing. When something happens, I'm the observer. The game officially begins. The so-called game. Soon, his fangs were bared. The mysterious man who calls himself the Observer. Half of the power to the nuclear power plant was cut off. Only the power supplied to the core living area remains. This means the surrounding high-voltage power grid has failed. Standing in the monitoring room, I looked at the screen. A despairing scene. Tens of thousands of zombies, attracted by some kind of sound wave, like a black tide. Nuclear power plants are pouring in from all directions. This was a deliberately led tide of corpses. Lin Yu angrily pounded the table. There were only 4 of us. They couldn't hold such a large place. Away's fingers danced across the keyboard, attempting to crack the observer's system. But the enemy's firewall is unbreakable. Even if you can't hold it, you must hold on. I checked. Just from the armory, several automatic rifles were found in the process. Xiaoya, you're familiar with the terrain. Take Lin Yu to the top floor to set up sniper points. Away. Welded all the passageways in the living area shut. Only one exit remains. I'm going to the main entrance. Lin Yu looked at me worriedly. I came from the corner. He pulled out a heavy box. Opened the lid. Inside was a rod. Once again, the 6-tube tube, which had been sealed away for who knows how long. Gatling gun. I have this. Night fell. Lion-Tide Striker crashed into the outer wall. The sound of rotting flesh hitting metal. The sound echoed through the night sky. I stood behind the sandbag assault at the main entrance. Light a cigarette. Take a deep breath. Then pull the trigger. Tongues of fire spewed metal. The storm was instantly torn apart. The dozens of zombies charging at the front. But this is just the beginning. The tide of corpses seemed endless, stepping on the bodies of their companions, piling them up continuously, attempting to climb over the wall. Just then, inside the walkie-talkie, Xiaoya's terrified voice came through. In the ventilation duct behind Uncle Li, something crawled in. Away went to block the vent. I fired wildly at the same time. He shouted into the walkie-talkie. The pressure at the front door is too great. I simply couldn't get away. The barrel of the Gatling gun was already glowing red. Bullets were being consumed rapidly. At this moment, inside the living quarters, Away was holding a flamethrower. His hands trembled. At the ventilation duct outlet, a muffled crawling sound came from inside the pipe. Faster and faster, getting closer and closer. The fence at the vent was knocked away. One was small and thin, But the crawler with extremely long limbs, he suddenly burst out. He has no skin. Her bright red muscles were exposed. The long tongue whipped like a whip. Go to hell. Away closed his eyes. He pulled the trigger. Flames erupted, instantly engulfing the creepers. The monster screamed and rolled in the flames. The smell of burning filled the entire corridor. But that doesn't end there. The second one. The third crawler arrived one after another. Away's flamethrower fuel was running out. At the critical moment, Linyu attacked Xiaoya's sniper position. He rushed back, in his hand, holding 2 bottles of homemade incendiary bombs. Well, it is prepared using alcohol and chemical reagents. Step aside and put the incendiary bomb aside. He threw it precisely deep into the ventilation duct. Bang! A violent explosion in a narrow pipeline. This triggered a chain reaction. The shockwave knocked away to the ground. Inside the pipeline, a series of agonized screams rang out. In the end, it settled into silence. Away collapsed to the ground. His face was covered in black and gray. Before they could catch their breath, the alarm sounds throughout the nuclear power plant. Suddenly, a great upheaval occurred. Warning of reactor cooling system failure. Core temperature surged sharply. The leader is expected to melt in 30 minutes. It is the observer. He saw that zombies couldn't break him. They actually wanted to detonate a nuclear power plant. Away, go to the control room. Try restarting the cooling system. Linyu, you go to the medical room to prepare the anti-radiation injection. Xiaoya took me to the reactor. I dropped the empty machine gun. He drew his pistol from his waist. He gave orders while sprinting toward the core area. The horde of corpses outside no longer mattered. If the reactor explodes, within 100 miles, everything would turn into scorched earth. Both the zombies and we must die. The radiation value of the core area. It has already started to soar. Xia and me put on heavy radiation protection suits, clumsily moving toward the reactor control valve. Uncle Li has people over there. Xiaoya pointed to the covered bridge above the reactor, through the misty mask. I saw it, a figure in a white lab coat, standing in front of the manual valve, holding a wrench in his hand. Valves are being frantically destroyed. It is the observer. If you don't look at your figure, you don't look like me. The man raising the gun turned around. A half-rotted face was revealed. It was the previous gas station, the SWAT captain who couldn't be rescued. He didn't die, but he had mutated. But it seems, it still retains a trace of human consciousness. Or rather, it was controlled by some kind of force. For evolution. He muttered indistinctly. He suddenly lunged at me. Shoot in this high radiation area. It may cause pipe penetration, causing leaks. I could only put away my gun. He drew his dagger and met the attack. This half-human, half-corpse monster, his strength was boundless. He grabbed me by the neck, pressed me against the scorching pipe. The radiation-proof suit emitted a sizzling scorching sound. The heat burned my skin. Xia picked up the large wrench from the floor. He slammed hard into the back of the monster's head, taking advantage of the monster's release. I kicked him off the covered bridge. It fell into the boiling cooling pool below, instantly vanished into thin air. Away has now successfully restarted. Water is being poured. Inside the walkie-talkie, Away's hoarse, desperate roar came through. The reactor's red light finally turned green. We collapsed to the ground. He hadn't had time to feel fortunate. On the radio, that cold voice rang out again. Interestingly, the first phase of testing is over. Since you like this place so much, then stay forever. As the words fell, all exit gates of the nuclear power plant locked them all down. We were stuck. The third day of being trapped. Food is starting to run out, although there are supplies in the nuclear power plant, but most of it is outside the lockdown zone. We are now. You can only move around in the core living area. The reserves here are only enough for 4 people. The atmosphere began to feel oppressive for a week. Away sat in front of the computer every day, attempting to hack the system, but progress is slow. Linyu was counting the few medicines left behind. Xiaoya remained silent, sharpening his dagger. We need to get out. I broke the silence. Since the ventilation duct can crawl in with monsters, it will definitely lead to the outside. Linyu objected. Those crawlers, they may still be nesting inside. Staying here is just waiting to die. I stood up. Let Xia follow me to scout the way. We went in. That vent filled with the smell of burnt. The pipe was pitch black. Only the faint beam of the flashlight appeared. On the wall, covered in sticky black substance. That is the secretion of a crawler. It took about 10 minutes to climb. A fork appeared ahead. The left side is the exhaust vent, straight to the ground, Xiaoya whispered. Just then, I heard it in the right pipe. A strange sound came. It was as if someone was speaking. This hellish place is only for us, and there are still living people. I signaled Xiaoya to be quiet. Quietly crawled to the right. The sound grew clearer and clearer. It came from under a partition. Below is a closed laboratory. Through the partition door, I witnessed an astonishing scene. Several people wearing protective suits, dissecting one. Only zombies command them. It was actually just one. An old man sitting in a wheelchair. Subject number 7. The pace of evolution is as expected, the old man said to the voice recorder. Images of those 4 survivors. Cut it over. I want to take a look. Their reaction in desperate situations. So this is the true nature of the observer. We lived right up in his lab. Suddenly, the old man looked up sharply, looking toward the vent where we were hiding. The lab's alarm sounded. I couldn't bother to hide it. He shoved Gasang and Xiaoya aside. He jumped down. Several security personnel fired their guns. I rolled to hide behind the lab bench. twice. Took out the one closest to me. Shia was like an assassin. Leverage your physique advantage, moving at thigh height. The dagger slashed another person's ankle. Catch that, old man, I shouted. That is our only bargaining chip. The old man didn't panic. He pressed a button on the wheelchair. Laboratory. A huge glass jar in the center, slowly rising. Inside, soaking in a tube inserted all over its body. Let me show you my masterpiece. 2 generations of tyrant. The old man laughed wildly. The glass jar shattered. The giant opened his eyes. He has no skin. Its entire body is covered in black bone armor. Her hands are 2 sharp bone blades. He threw a punch. He directly took a heavy dissection table. It was smashed into scrap metal. Monsters of this level. It's simply not something a handgun can handle. Shia and I rushed toward the lab exit, but the door was locked. A way cut off the lab's power. I shouted into the walkie-talkie. A few seconds later, the lights were completely turned off. The laboratory was plunged into darkness. The second-generation tyrant lost his sight. He wildly swung the ancient blade in the darkness. Take advantage of this opportunity. I turned on my night vision goggles. This was just taken from the bodyguard of security. In the green field of vision, I saw the old man, trying to escape through the hidden door. I rushed over. She grabbed him by the collar. He pressed the muzzle to his forehead. Make that big guy stop. Otherwise, I'll send you to hell right now. The old man trembled. Raise the controller in your hand. The second-generation tyrant stood frozen in place. I held the old man down. The laboratory doors opened. Lin Yu and Wei had already arrived at the door. The old waiter smiled sinisterly. You won. But this is just the beginning. You have no idea at all what the outside world has become. Inside the interrogation room, the old man's name is Dr. Cheng. He was once the chief scientist of this project. The virus is not a natural mutation, but artificially manufactured biological weapons. Dr. Cheng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His gaze was feverish. He can filter out humanity's strongest genes. Those zombies were just failures. And we are God's chosen people. The man Lin Yu gave a cold comment. From Dr. Chen's computer, he received even more desperate news. 90% of the world's cities have already fallen. The government retreated to defend the city. They arrived at several large underground bases, and around the nuclear power plant. Several have already been affected. Armed forces like vultures. Dividing us up is like a piece of fatty meat, surrounded by a pack of wolves. Below this is an arsenal. Dr. Chen suddenly said, as long as you let me go, I'll tell you the password. I stared into his eyes, trying to tell what's real from fake. We held him in custody. They arrived at the lowest level of the arsenal. Dr. Chen entered the password at the entrance. The heavy door slowly opened. What came into view? Rows of brand new automatic rifles, bulletproof vests. There are even several armored vehicles, and shoulder-mounted rocket launchers. With this equipment, we are no longer lambs to the slaughter, but a wolf with fangs. Just as we were immersed in joy, Dr. Chen, suddenly, she broke free from Away's control, and charged into the armory. A red button on the wall was pressed. Let's die together. That was a self-destruction countdown. Only 2 minutes. We threw gear out like crazy. At the last second, we rushed out of the arsenal, the blast behind him. He sent us flying more than 10 meters, a massive explosion. Although the arsenal was destroyed, but it also blew up the nuclear power plant, a secret tunnel leading to the outside world. The long-lost sunlight finally shone on our faces. But outside the tunnel exit, dozens of vehicles were snapped. An off-road vehicle with the skeleton logo. He had been waiting for a long time. The leader of the vultures, that scar-faced face, sitting on a tank. He looked at us with teasing eyes. Thank you for opening the door for me, I shouted when I stepped back. He pulled everyone back to the tunnel entrance. Bombarded tank shell. It slammed into the rock wall above the tunnel. Gravel fell like raindrops. If only half a second later, we end up as mincemeat. I looked at the one in my hand that had just been rescued. The only shoulder-mounted rocket launcher. Only 2 warheads. Shia, you go around from the vent to their flank, creating unrest. Lin Yu, you provide fire suppression behind cover. Away tried to find a way, disrupting their radio communications. I quickly assigned tasks. Shia was like a ghost, disappearing into the shadows. A few minutes later, an explosion occurred behind the convoy calling for help. It was Shia who detonated a tanker truck, taking advantage of the enemy's confusion. Lin Yu picked up his rifle and began firing in bursts. Precise marksmanship. In an instant, several thugs who showed their heads were taken down. I took a deep breath, grabbed the rocket launcher, and dashed out of the bunker. The tank turret is slowly rotating, searching for Shia's location. I seized this blind spot, targeting the tank's weakest tracks. Ball boom. The rocket left its tail flame and hit the target precisely. The tank's tracks broke. His massive body was paralyzed on the spot. But that didn't scare off Scarface. He became even more reckless. Charge me. That's my arsenal. Dozens of thugs were shouting loudly, rushed forward. I threw down the rocket launcher, pull out the pair. The gun stood on the rubble at the tunnel entrance, like a god of slaughter. Just as the two sides were about to engage in close combat, in the sky, suddenly, a strange buzzing sounded through. Buzz is not a drone. Instead, it was tens of thousands of mutant wasps. Each of them is about the size of a fist. The poisonous needle at the tail glowed blue. Explosions and the smell of blood. This attracted the group of death gods in the air. The mutant wasp's attacks are indistinguishable from friend or foe. A wasp pounced on a thug. Poison needle. It instantly pierced through his bulletproof vest. The man screamed in agony. The body swells at a rate visible to the naked eye. A few seconds later, he suffocated to death. Entering the tunnel is quick. Me, directed at the Scarface man who hadn't yet reacted. Scarface shouted, stunned for a moment, watching his subordinates fall one after another. Gritting his teeth, he waved his hand and withdrew into the cave. Just now, there were two groups of people fighting to the death. Now, we had to squeeze into a narrow tunnel. Together they resisted the insect invasion outside. We set up flamethrowers at the entrance of the cave. That was just taken from the arsenal. The flames formed a wall of fire. As long as the wasps come close, we'll be burned to ashes. The atmosphere inside the cave was extremely eerie. I pointed my gun at Scarface. Scarface's henchmen pointed at us. I stared coldly at Scarface. Once the fire stops, we'll all die. Now there is only cooperation. Scarface spat out. Wait until the bugs have scattered. I'll be the first to break you. This standoff lasted an entire night, until dawn. Temperatures drop. Only then did the mutant wasps disperse unwillingly. The moment the firewall went out, the air instantly solidified. Scarface really doesn't play fair. But I was faster than him. Last night away, already secretly, hacked into their tank's fire control system. Although the tracks broke, but the turret can still move. Bang! The abandoned tank parked outside the cave entrance. Suddenly, a burst of fire was launched. Shells exploded among the mob. Although it didn't hit directly, but the massive shockwave tore them up. Turning the horse overturns, we slipped through the chaos. He entered a fork in the road he'd long anticipated. That was the nuclear power plant's sewage channel, a river that runs straight to the back mountain. When we emerged from the icy river water, when climbing ashore, he had completely shaken off the vulture gang. Where to go next? Lin Yu asked, twisting her soaked hair. I took out a photo. It was found from Dr. Chen. Encrypted map. Above, it marks a place called Eden. To find the true safe zone. The road to Eden was not easy. We are going to cross a place called Death, the foggy area. The fog here never clears up year-round, and it contains mild hallucinogenic toxins. Each of us, everyone wore gas masks. Tie each other together with ropes. Prevent getting separated. I was at the very front. Suddenly, he felt the rope lighten. I turned my head and felt empty behind me. The rope was neatly cut. The surroundings were eerily quiet. Only thick fog rolls. The illusion really did drift apart. Suddenly, in the fog ahead, a figure appeared. Captain Li, save me. It was Lin Yu's voice. I rushed over. But then he saw Lin Yu turn around. Face. It turned into a blank slate without facial features. I swung my blade at him. That figure turned into a wisp of smoke. Something dissipated in this mist. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to calm down, relying on hearing to determine direction. Sounds of fighting came from the left front. I rushed away following the sound. He saw Xiaoya leaning against a big tree, waving a dagger in his hand, and besieging him. It was actually a group. A mutant as agile as a monkey. They leapt through the woods. Using the mist to conceal his figure, I lowered my head and fired 2 shots. He knocked down 2 midair monsters. We finally reunited. Awei was so scared he wet his pants. Lin Yu's arm was also slightly injured. This fog interferes with the radio. The compass also failed. Awei looked miserable. Right there. We flailed around like headless flies. Time. A melodious chime pierced through the mist. The sound of the bell. Where would the bell ring in this desolate wilderness? Following the direction of the bell, we saw an ancient church. Standing alone atop the mountain, on the spire of the church, a broken flag was hanging. That was the Red Cross flag from the old era. Push open the heavy doors of the church. The scene inside left us stunned. Hundreds of ragged survivors. He was kneeling on the ground, on the prayer platform, standing, a priest dressed in a white robe, preaching with a kind face. There is food here. There was water, and even hot showers, for the wasteland. After months of struggling, it felt like a dream. But I still felt something was off. Survivors here. His gaze was so blank, like a group of puppets on strings. There is a problem with the water here. After quietly testing the drinking water, Lin Yu, he told me with a grave expression. It contains a high concentration of sedatives, and an unknown hallucinogenic ingredient. Just then, the priest came over. He wore that insincere smile on his face. The new lost lamb. Tonight is the baptism ceremony. You will have the privilege to witness miracles. The so-called baptism. It really is. Send a few ungodly survivors. He threw it into a large pit in the church's backyard. The bottom of the pit. He keeps a mutated giant spider. The crowd stared numbly at their kind. Devoured by a spider. They even joined in the cheers. These lunatics. Awei couldn't help but curse out loud. The priest's gaze instantly locked onto us. It seems, we need to teach new friends a lesson. Dozens of strong followers wielding sticks. They surrounded him. Don't shoot. Unless absolutely necessary. I ordered in a low voice. I put away my gun. He pulled out 2 telescopic batons. To capture the bandits, first seize the leader. Xia understood immediately. Use your body advantage to weave through the crowd. He headed straight for the priest and left. Lin Yu and I were back to back, resisting the impact of the cultists. Awei hid under the podium. Attempts were made to cut off the church's broadcasting system. That was the priest's tool for issuing instructions. The priest saw Xiaoya rushing over. He actually came out of the long robe. He pulled out a shotgun. Bang! Shirya dodged with a sliding tackle, but his shoulder was still scraped by shrapnel. Is Away still not recovered? I knocked him out with a single blow. A cultist shouted loudly. Sizzle. A harsh noise rang out over the broadcast. Then Away's voice came through. Wake up, everyone. The water is poisonous. He's feeding you to monsters. Away. He was shown in the priest's room. Found the recording. The crowd of witnesses was in an uproar. The fanaticism in his eyes began to fade. Instead, there is confusion and fear. The priest panicked. Don't listen to the devil's whisper and kill him. But he had lost control over the crowd. Shirya seized the opportunity to leap up. He kicked the priest's gun away. The dagger was pressed against his throat. Your god can't save you anymore. The angry survivors rushed forward. The priest was about to be reinforced. They pushed into the big pit where the spiders were raised. Screams echoed through the church. We didn't stop. In the church's basement, we found a large amount of supplies. There was also a school bus that could still start. More importantly, we found this in the priest's diary. He is connected to Eden. He is working for Eden. Qualified test subjects were selected. The so-called Garden of Eden. It's definitely not a safe zone, but rather a massive human experimentation ground. Now that the truth is known, I want to go even more. We are going to destroy him, or die on the road. The school bus sped down the highway. We recruited more than a dozen sane ones, survivors with fighting spirit. A temporary fleet was formed. When Eden is still 50 kilometers away, we encountered a real army, not government forces. It was the Black Guards of Eden's private army. They wear fully equipped exoskeleton armor, holding an energy weapon. The gap in equipment is huge. Watching the fire at the outpost ahead, Lwanjia said in despair, forcing a direct charge is not possible. I had to outsmart them and took out those two. I had always been reluctant to use it. Mutated virus serum. This was a direct response from Dr. Chen. It can be done in a short period of time. Greatly enhances human functions. However, the side effects are unknown. I'll go distract them. I picked up the syringe. It pierced his own neck. A burning pain surged through him. It instantly spread throughout his body. My veins burst. Vision becomes exceptionally clear. Power surged within him. I jumped out of the car, charging forward like a cheetah, and somewhat stronger. The Black Guard's bullets were flying beside me. I can actually rely on instinct. Make evasive actions. I charged into the enemy ranks. One punch, shattering a soldier's exoskeleton. The mask snatched his energy gun. They began a frenzied barrage, taking advantage of the Black Guards being drawn to me. The school bus crashed through the roadblock, rushing toward the gates of Eden. But I was surrounded. The drug's effects began to wear off. A sharp pain struck, just when I thought I was about to end it here. A cry of an eagle echoed from the sky. One has a wingspan exceeding 5 meters. Mutated golden eagles, descending from the heavens. He grabbed a Black Guard and threw him into the air. That was the injured eaglet Shirya had raised. It had grown so much, and they've always followed us. Under the cover of the golden eagle, covered in blood, I climbed onto the school bus. We rushed into the outskirts of Eden. Here, it looks like a high-tech city. The lights remained bright as ever, but beneath the glamorous exterior, it was a zombie dog patrolling the streets, and a mummified corpse hanging from the streetlight. My weak tactical arrangements are great. Take people to destroy the energy center, paralyzing their defense systems. Lin Yu and Xia came with me to the central building. Settle accounts with their leader. The central building is heavily guarded. We pretended to be cleaners transporting bodies. Sneaked in. The elevator goes straight to the top floor. The moment the door opened, we were stunned by what we saw. The entire top floor. It is a huge floor-to-ceiling window. Outside the office, it was ruins of the apocalypse. Inside, however, was a lavish banquet. Dozens of nobles dressed in formal attire. He was raising his glass and drinking heartily, and beneath their feet lies. He is a slave kneeling on the ground. Welcome to the new world. A man in a suit turned around, holding red wine in his hand. It was actually the one who abandoned me back then. Mr. Zhang, the boss of a listed company. Li Cheng, you're actually not dead. President Zhang was a bit surprised. He immediately showed a contemptuous smile. He clapped his hands. The floor cracked. A huge cage was raised. Locked inside. He is my long-lost old comrade, Old Wang. But he was no longer human. He was transformed into a semi-mechanical one. A half-zombie killing machine. If you kill him, I'll let your friend go. President Chang threw me a knife. Old Wang. The hollow electronic eye flickered with red light. The chainsaw on the robotic arm roared. Old Wang is me. I tried to wake him up, but he only has the order to kill. The chainsaw slashed down head-on. I rolled awkwardly to dodge. The suit was torn. Blood beads oozed from the skin. The surrounding nobles let out an excited scream, as if watching a spectacular beast fighting show. Fight back or you'll die. Lin Yu shouted from the sidelines. He was firmly held down by 2 Black Guards, and cannot kill him. That's my brother. I dodged as I went, while observing the mechanical device on Old Wang's body. That was the external control unit. Just destroy that. Perhaps it can cut off control. I made a flaw. Old Wang's chainsaw got stuck in the floor. Taking advantage of the moment he was pulling the saw, I jumped onto his back, the knife in his hand. He slammed it hard into the chip slot at the back of his neck, rushing and rushing like lightning. Old Wang's massive body crashed to the ground. The red light went out. His eyes regained a trace of clarity. He struggled to squeeze out a few words. Run. His chest began to glow red. That was a self-destructing program. Get down. I lunged at Lin Yu and Xiaoya, using my body. The body protects them. A violent explosion shattered the glass curtain wall on the top floor. Amidst the smoke and dust, President Zhang retreated in terror. Now it's your turn. I stood up from the ruins, covered in blood. Step by step, he walked toward President Zhang. Mr. Zhang. I forced him into a blind spot by the floor-to-ceiling window, right behind him. Gales and abysses hundreds of meters high. This was once a dominant force in the business world. A man who treats human life as worthless. At this moment, he was limp as mud. Expensive custom suits are drenched in cold sweat, exuding a vibe. A disgusting taste of fear. No interrogation methods I needed. His mental defenses, long ago under my blood-stained gun, completely collapsed. He trembled as his fingers pointed at the ceiling, with an almost mad gaze. To me, he revealed that despairing truth. So we've been fighting all the way to where we are now. The real mastermind behind the scenes is confronted. Not even human. Instead, a character codenamed Adam. Super artificial intelligence. The so-called Garden of Eden. But it's based on the cold algorithm, calculated by the project. Petri dishes for the Human Complement Project. And we are just guinea pigs. In the center of the hall, the originally deposited holographic projection installation suddenly activated. In the air, the humming sound of current overload was heard. Countless streams of ghostly blue data, wildly weaving and stacking in midair. Eventually, they converge, forming a huge, blurry human face, suspended high above the dome, looking down at our insignificant self, in a pair of eyes made of code. No anger, no mercy. There is only one way. Absolute rationality that sees everything as straw dogs. That grand and indifferent electronic voice. It directly penetrates the eardrum. It shook my chest. He was delivering a verdict. We owed defective products. The death penalty seemed to be erased. We only need to move our fingers. The lower 10th floor had no fully armed guards. There was only a suffocating silence, and the icy blue light. Here is Adam's cerebral cortex. Tens of thousands. Server arrays are neatly arranged. The low-frequency hum of the fan, like the breath of a giant beast in its sleep. And on that massive central host, there is no vacuum around you, but it's almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. Yet it can cut through instantly. A steel laser defense net. A sharp static current came from the earpiece. Avi's long-range invasion failed. The speed at which this algorithm evolves, far beyond human limits. Any attempt to break through the network, his actions. It was like using a wooden stick to pry Mount Tai, trying to kill this god. The only way is physical access. Put away the USB drive containing the destructive virus, like a dagger piercing his heart. I'm still in my head. He rapidly calculated the survival rate of forcing his way in. Even in bulletproof vests, the chances of survival are also extremely close to zero. However, a petite figure, he had already rushed out. It was Xuya who was in the ruins of the apocalypse. A girl who grew up, without the slightest hesitation, like a black cat dancing on the edge of a knife. She uses her body's flexibility to the test. An incredible perspective, twisting the joints. In the gaps of that official website of death, shuttle through the shuttle. Every second was stretched by the senses. I held my breath. He watched helplessly. That deadly high-energy beam wipe his skin. A wisp even drifted over from it, the smell of burned hair. Every roll, every time he bent down, it was like a cheetah-face salute to death, just as his fingertips touched the interface. The moment the USB drive was forcefully inserted, the originally calm blue data center, she became an instant sensation, a piercing alarm. It almost pierced my eardrums. All around, the metal walls, once smooth as mirrors, slowly cracked open. This time, what emerged was not an illusory holographic projection. Instead, hundreds of chainsaw hoses were loaded, cleaning robots for machine guns and flamethrowers. Those icy mechanical red eyes, shine in the darkness, started in that cramped space. We became fish trapped in a barrel, facing it. It was a battle of steel and flesh. Time seemed to freeze. In the moment when gunfire and sparks intertwined, every second is a long torment. We, supported by rigid server cabinets, as the last bunker, with those who don't know pain, fearless machine monsters. A desperate exchange of shots began. In the narrow passage, the crisp sound of bullets striking metal, and chainsaws cut through bones with a piercing sound. Noise. President Zhang was already curled up in the corner. There was no sound, unaware that he died from a stray bullet, still extremely frightened. But that no longer matters. Inside this meat grinder, human life is the cheapest consumable. The automatic rifle in Lin Yu's hand. The magazine had long been emptied. This was once the case. A doctor who saves lives with a scalpel, at this moment. But he swung a red fire axe, like a man, chopping down those robotic arms trying to climb over the cabinet, all over his face. It's all a mixture of engine oil and blood. My bulletproof vest had long since rotted to a pulp. Not a single shot. A bullet struck the ribs. It was like a heavy hammer hitting him. Let me taste it. The scent of blood churned in his throat. Immediately, that heavy Gatling robot. The barrel was already preheated, about to tear us apart. A crisp electronic notification sounded. Suddenly, a sound rang out. It became the most wonderful symphony in the world. The moment the virus uploads complete, it was as if time had been paused. All the mechanical eyes glowing red, extinguished at the same time. Those raised butcher knives froze in midair. In midair, that fierce data face. It began to twist violently, let out a voice of unwillingness, like an electronic roar from hell. Then it completely disintegrated. The silence of death returned. Only our heavy breathing remained. We won. But this is a victory. It carries the taste of blood and burnt, so heavy that it makes one unable to stand upright. We supported each other, stumbled out of the gates of Eden, The long-lost dazzling sunlight shone on his face, stinging until people shed tears. In the distance, it is a celebration for the slaves who have regained their freedom. Farther away, the scene was still full of devastation. A wasteland strewn with yellow sand. The control center was destroyed. But the apocalypse is not over. That's just for us. Waking up from a nightmare of being manipulated to face something even harsher. But it's just a more real reality. 3 months later, the snow in the valley finally melted. The long-lost brown earth was revealed. There is no towering power grid here, nor is there a cold automatic gun turret. Only by working together with one heart can we all work together. A few acres of wheat fields cultivated, glimmering with tender green hope in the breeze. Away became the chief technology officer here. He used a pile of scrap metal, pieced it together. High-power radio that can connect to the outside world. Every day, tirelessly heading toward the void, sending messages of survivors gathering. Linyu built a simple building, yet a warm clinic. He was inside those murky test tubes, day after day, cultivating the serum that fights viruses in humans. Xiaoya became the children's instructor. That golden eagle that was once injured, now it has spread its wings and soared high, often resting on his shoulder, still using those sharp eyes, watching the sky for us. And I am still the same, holding the steering wheel of that old friend's car. This heavy truck, after countless modifications, several newly welded steel plates had been added to the body, just like me. Those scars that will never heal. That is our medal for survival. Just as I was about to start the engine, leading the rescue team, when searching deep into the wasteland for supplies, suddenly, static noise broke through the car radio. An unfamiliar signal came. That comes from afar. The voice of the Northern Joint Base. It is also a rally order for humanity to counterattack the city. Me, watching the sun rise on the horizon. He took a deep breath, rough mixed with the smell of dust. Yet the air is incredibly free. I know the calm is only temporary. Zombies are still evolving in dark corners. Rioters still rampaged across the wasteland. This damned world has not healed. It was even festering. But as long as we still hold the gun, still panting, it would never be like wild grass, left to be trampled underfoot, left to fate's mercy. I pressed the firing button. A firm response was sent to the north, with the engine. A dull yet powerful roar rang out. The heavy truck kicked up billowing clouds of dust. He charged toward that area again. A wasteland full of unknowns and dangers. Because I know, our battle has only just begun.